the front door slammed shut, the sound echoing through the empty house like a gunshot. I flinched, my heart racing as I quickly hid the incriminating photo beneath a stack of unopened mail on the kitchen counter. My hands were shaking, but I forced them to remain steady as I turned to face him. "Where have you been?" I asked, my voice trembling more than I would have liked. He stepped into the living room, his eyes narrow and suspicious. "I told you. I was at the office late. Something came up." I crossed my arms over my chest, trying to muster some semblance of strength. "You said you were on a business trip." His gaze hardened, and I got back early. "Is there a problem with that?" "Yes," I snapped, no longer able to keep the anger from my voice. "There is." He scoffed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "What the hell are you talking about?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I had to do next. "A colleague of yours sent me something." His expression shifted, uncertainty flickering in his eyes before he quickly masked it. "What did they send you?" I hesitated, my resolve wavering. This was it, the moment everything changed. A photo. His jaw tightened, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of fear, but then it was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating glare. "What photo?" I reached for the stack of mail, my fingers brushing against the corner of the photograph as I pulled it out. "This one." My husband's eyes widened as he took in the image of himself, naked and tangled in the sheets with another woman. He froze, his lips parting as if he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. "Is this true?" I demanded, my voice breaking despite my best efforts to stay strong. He opened his mouth, closed it, and then finally spoke. It wasn't what it looks like." "Oh, please," I spat, holding the photo up for him to see clearly. "You were in bed with her, asleep. How is that not what it looks like?" He took a step forward, reaching for the photo, but I jerked it away. "Don't touch me," I warned, my eyes blazing with fury. He held up his hands in surrender, backing off slightly. "Look, I can explain." "No," I interrupted, shaking my head vehemently. "You can't. There's nothing you can say that will make this okay." He frowned, frustration clear in his expression. "We were drunk. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed incredulously. "You think this is just some simple mistake? After 10 years of marriage, you betray me like this?" His eyes darkened, and for a moment, I thought I saw a hint of remorse, but then it was gone, replaced by defensiveness. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I retorted, stepping closer to him. "I understand that you lied to me, that you used our daughter as an excuse to get away so you could sleep with someone else." His face contorted with anger, and he grabbed my arm, yanking me toward him. "You have no right to judge me." I winced at the pain, but refused to show weakness. "Let go of me." He tightened his grip, his voice low and dangerous. "Or what? You'll leave me too? Just like everyone else?" I glared up at him, my own anger reaching a boiling point. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." His eyes flickered with something almost like fear, but he quickly suppressed it. "You wouldn't dare." "Watch me," I challenged, wrenching my arm free. "I want you out of this house, now." He stared at me in disbelief, shaking his head. "You can't do this. Not after everything we've been through." "Oh, I can," I assured him, pulling out my phone and dialing a number. "And I will." As the phone rang, he lunged at me, grabbing my wrist and twisting it painfully. "You're making a huge mistake." I ignored the pain, focusing instead on the person on the other end of the line. "Hello? Yes. I need the police. There's an intruder in my home." My husband's eyes widened in shock, and he released my wrist, stumbling backwards. "You called the cops?" I nodded, rubbing my sore wrist. "Yes. And when they get here, I'm going to tell them everything." He stared at me, his expression a mixture of anger and desperation. "You can't do this. Our daughter needs us both. Our daughter needs a father who isn't a liar and a cheater." I shot back, crossing my arms over my chest. "And I need a partner who doesn't betray me." His jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought he might try to physically restrain me again, but then he seemed to deflate, his shoulders sagging as he realized he had no choice. "Fine," he spat, turning on his heel and heading for the door. "But don't think this is over." "Oh, it's very much over," I replied calmly, watching him go. "And it's only just begun." The door creaked open, and in walked their daughter, Emily. She was an intelligent girl, perceptive beyond her years, and the weight of her knowledge was evident on her face. Her eyes scanned the room, taking in the tension that hung heavy in the air like a storm cloud. "Mom, Dad," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. I knew about the affair. Her mother's heart sank. She had hoped to shield her daughter from this ugly truth, but it was clear now that the deception had been failed. The betrayal lay bare, exposed not just to her but to their child as well. "Emily," her mother began, her voice thick with emotion, "why didn't you say anything?" Emily looked down at her feet, tears pooling in her eyes. "I didn't know how. I wanted to believe it wasn't true, that it was all just a misunderstanding." Her father stood there, fuming, his fists clenched tightly. He looked at his daughter, conflicted between his anger and the love he felt for her. "Emily, this isn't your fault. You shouldn't have to deal with this." "But I do, Dad," Emily retorted, her voice rising slightly. "I live here too. And I don't want to lose either of you over something so stupid." Her mother stepped forward, reaching out to comfort her daughter. "Emily, we'll figure this out. We always do." Emily shook her head, stepping back. "No, Mom. This is different. This is something we can't just brush under the rug." Her mother's heart ached at the pain in her daughter's voice. She turned to her husband, pleading with her eyes for him to say something, anything, that might ease the tension. But he remained silent, his jaw clenched tight. "Dad," Emily said, her voice softer now, "do you still love us? Or is what you did more important than your family?" Her father's silence was deafening. He didn't know how to answer that question. His mind raced, torn between the love he had for his wife and daughter and the guilt that gnawed at him for his actions. Emily took a deep breath, wiping away her tears. I think we need some space. For everyone to figure out what they really want." Her mother nodded, understanding the wisdom in her daughter's words. "Okay, Emily. We'll give everyone the space they need." Her father finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Emily, I love you both. That will never change." Emily looked at him, her eyes searching his for any hint of sincerity. "Then prove it, Dad. Prove that we mean more to you than anything else." He reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder, but she flinched away. The hurt in her eyes was palpable. "Not like this," she whispered. Not after everything. Her mother watched the exchange, feeling the weight of their broken family pressing down on her. She knew that things could never be the same again. Trust, once shattered, was nearly impossible to